Hello, Pardreamin. Thanks for joining us and happy Friday. We have an amazing speaker today to give us some great insights on contacts and multiple accounts. With that, I will pass it over to our speaker, Matt Lincoln. Take it away, Matt.
Hi everyone, welcome to this session about a Salesforce feature called Contacts to Multiple Accounts and how it interacts with Pardot. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Matt. I've been using Pardot since around 2014, and I've worn a few different hats in the Pardot world between being an end user, an agency consultant, freelancer, and a contractor. Last year, I was at Pardream and ran a workshop type of session around auditing your account, which was relevant to pretty much everyone. But this time I've gone right over to the opposite end of the scale, and this topic's covering a really niche scenario. So I'm not expecting a lot of attendees here, but hopefully this content's going to show up if people run into this problem in future and Google it. The content I'll talk around today comes from my learnings at my current role at Deliveroo, where I'm a Pardot and Salesforce consultant. So a brief intro to the structure of the session. We'll have a look at what is contacts to multiple accounts in Salesforce. We'll look at why it causes problems for Pardot, and then we'll finish up by looking at some of the options that you can take if you're using contacts to multiple accounts and Pardot together. So let's start by looking at a small bit of theory to give you some context if you're not familiar with contacts to multiple accounts. And to be honest, I've got really tired of saying that in full over the last year or so. So from here on in, you might hear me say C2MA instead, or see that written in the materials. So whenever I think about contacts to multiple accounts, I'm always reminded of the phrase wearing more than one hat, which means having more than one role or responsibility at the same time. And really, that's the scenario C2MA was designed to support, which is when one person has an association to more than one company or organization. And it's useful to start by looking at the default Salesforce object model and checking how accounts and contacts relate to each other. As you can see from the diagram, an account can have many contacts related to it, but a contact can only be related to one account out of the box. So this is a problem if you're dealing with decision makers who, like I said before, wear more than one hat. And I've got a few examples here. Some of the most common ones I've seen in person or read about are maybe your target market is the healthcare industry, where it's quite common for clinical practitioners such as doctors, dentists, or opticians to work for more than one hospital or healthcare facility. Maybe you're targeting marketing consultants who might have a vendor relationship to multiple accounts as an external consultant. And don't forget about business owners or entrepreneurs, and they might have founded or they might own more than one company. So it's worth thinking about how would you try to represent Elon Musk as a contact in Salesforce if you were trying to sell to both SpaceX and Tesla at the same time. Beyond that, there's a few more examples, which could be that a person can join more than one membership organization, or they could donate to multiple charities. And I wanted to give a real world example of a Salesforce and Pardot user with C2MA enabled. So I work for Deliveroo, which is an online marketplace. They're best known for online food delivery. And at Deliveroo, Salesforce and Pardot are used to attract, sign up, and retain restaurant and grocery partners. So we decided to enable contacts to multiple accounts earlier this year because of how challenging it was to manage the scenario where one entrepreneur might own, I don't know, 5 or 10 different restaurants that they want to join the platform. So it was important that we needed to tailor the experience of the restaurant owner, both on the level of providing our sales teams with a good single customer view of all the restaurants related to a decision maker, but we also needed to personalize the communications we sent to the decision maker based on the fact that they don't tend to onboard all their restaurants at the exact same time, which means we could have some restaurants currently in the process of onboarding, other restaurants succeeding and doing really well on the platform, and then other restaurants just in need of a helping hand to fix any issues or perform better. And we can service that by good marketing comms. So all those scenarios, they need different types of communications and email sent to them at different times, but it can be all to the same recipient. So what did we do? We enabled contacts to multiple accounts. And by the way, when you're having a look in setup, you might notice a separate older feature, which is called account contact roles. And yeah, it's very easy to confuse that with contacts to multiple accounts, but actually it's a completely separate feature. And there's 2 points to mention about account contact roles, which means it's not as attractive. Firstly, it's only available on Salesforce Classic and not on Lightning. And second, you can't create custom fields on it, use validation rules or process builder. So really the direction that we're being pointed in by Salesforce is to use contacts to multiple accounts instead. I've included a link here to the implementation guide, which I think Emma will share in the chat. But if you follow that, one of the steps that you can take is to add your related accounts list to the related list section of your contacts page layout. And you can add the related contacts list to your account page layout. That was a bit of a minefield to say that. But yeah, ultimately, you'll be able to see which contacts are related to which account, and then which accounts each contact is associated to. So a couple of nice benefits to mention is that you can set whether a contact, just like you see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can set whether the contact is still active at an account. And that solves the question everybody always has around what should I do when a contact leaves the company. And just below that, you can see we've got end date and start date fields as well. They're also a default, probably a bit overkill for most people though. And the other thing I like about this feature is that you can set the role that the contact has at each account. And that's a really clean way, I think, to define who are the gatekeepers, decision makers, or influencers at each account. One other thing that you'll see, and I'm going to jump into Salesforce in a second to demo this, so don't worry if I'm going too fast. But another thing you can see on the left screenshot there is this direct field, and that's a really important attribute. So you can't directly edit it from the account contact relationship record, but it does get ticked automatically when when that account is set as the contact's primary account, which means it's the account selected under the account name, just like you can see here on the right on the contact record. So any other accounts that you add through this add relationship button on the related accounts related list, again, a bit of a tongue twister there, they become non-direct account links, which means that the link between the contact and the account only exists through the account contact relationship object. So just wanted to show you what's going on behind the scenes here. So before we enable contacts to multiple accounts, if we want to represent a contact relationship to, let's say, a parent account and two child accounts, and we want to be able to send personalized emails about data that we hold on each of those account records and merge that into emails, then what we need to do is duplicate the contact multiple times in Salesforce, and we need to have one contact linked to each account. And I don't need to go into too much detail about why that's a problem or could cause issues, but at a really high level, it means you're not getting that single customer view of that person's interactions with you. And it makes things like marketing preference management a lot more challenging. So on the right-hand side, after enabling contacts to multiple accounts, we get this scenario where you can have a single contact that represents a decision maker, and they can have that direct relationship to an account. But then we can also have records on the account contact relationship junction object that sits between the account and the contact, and that represents that indirect relationship between the account and the contact. So the summary here is that we can segment our audience based on data that we hold in the non-primary account records associated to the contact, but we just can't personalize those emails. And we'll have a look in a second about why that is in Pardot and what we can do about it. But first, I just want to jump in and have a quick look about how it fits together in Salesforce. So if I navigate to an account record, let's open the account. And as I scroll down my related lists, so this is what you would see after following the implementation guide that I mentioned earlier. So we can see that Acme Corporation has 3 related contacts, John, Ashley, and another John. But only one of those contacts, John Smith, is actually related to Acme as a primary contact. So the other 2 have primary account relationships to other accounts. And then if we navigate into one of those contacts, so let's pick Ashley, and we scroll down, we'll then see on the contact record the related accounts related list. So we can see that Ashley has 2 account relationships. Her primary account relationship, or also known as a direct one, is United Oil and Gas, where she is a decision maker. And then she's also related to Acme, but in an indirect way, purely through the account contact relationship. And we can also jump into those records. So if you click on the drop down here, we can view that relationship or edit or remove it. So if I view the relationship, we can see a bit more detail here. As I go back, what you can do is you can add a new relationship. So if we know that, in fact, Ashley is also related to Burlington, and she is an influencer there, then we can save that, and we'll see that a new account contact relation has been created to link Ashley to that company. Likewise, we can also remove relationships. One thing to point out is that you can't remove the primary or direct relationship, because that's the one that is selected on the account name lookup. So if we wanted to remove that, we'd obviously need to change the account Ashley is related to, and then it wouldn't appear here as a direct link. So let's jump back and have a look. Now that we've set the foundations and looked at the Salesforce side of things, we'll talk about this in the context of Pardot. So Pardot's really designed to take a prospect who's typically a B2B decision maker on a sales cycle, right from awareness through to the sale, and then help them be retained as a client. So you can consider this prospect as a single entity from Pardot's perspective, which as a marketer, you can combine with data from the related accounts and any related opportunities. And you're really bringing that decision maker along that sales cycle by targeting them with personalized and relevant comms. But if you're a business where each account that's associated with a prospect is considered an entirely separate entity, and each account has a different sales cycle and needs different engagement and personalization, specifically on attributes held at the account level, then this is where the Pardot model really falls short. I can see a couple of questions coming in. I'll save those for the end. So the main problem that you've got with Pardot is that because you can only personalize emails based on the account that's related to the Salesforce object, Salesforce contact with that lookup field, which means that's what we called the direct relationship earlier. It means that we can never bring in things to personalize emails like the account name or any other personalization details such as renewal date or address details or any products or services the account has purchased. So you'll never be able to personalize emails based on any of those indirectly linked accounts. So the question is really here, if we can't do what we want to do out of the box, what can we do? So Here's where something called custom objects comes in Pardot. So if we want to segment our audience based on fields on those non-primary accounts, then we need to use these custom objects in Pardot to try and map out our account contact relationship object. We can then build out dynamic lists in Pardot to build lists of prospects who match certain criteria, just like you see in the bottom left screenshot, such as show me a list of prospects who are associated with an account which has a subscription date in which expires in the next 30 days or something like that. So the challenge here is that by default, that account contact relationship record doesn't hold any information that the related account holds. So you'd need to use some kind of Salesforce side automation like a flow to pass down information from the account to that account contact relationship record that's related to it. And then you can then consume that data in Pardot. So I wanted to show a quick example of how you might want to do that in Pardot. Actually, just looking first in Salesforce. So kind of here's one I made earlier. If we look at this account again, what you'll see under the details tab is that I've got a subscription information section. So let's imagine we're selling software as a service to this account, and their subscription with us ends on 5th of November. So what we want to do is we want to target this person using Pardot emails with a subscription reminder to say that your subscription is ending within the next X days. So the first thing that I've done is just looking at the related contacts. So we might want to send an email to Ashley, John, and John here. So just looking at this relationship, the account contact relationship record, what I've also done here is created a subscription end date field. So this mirrors what we just saw on the account record. And what I've done is, if you know Salesforce, you'll know that just creating the field here won't automatically pull the data in from the account. But I've created a flow which has a look, and for example, when the subscription date is updated on Acme Corporation, then it automatically stamps that subscription end date onto the account contact relationship records that are associated to Acme. So when I updated it to 5th of November, it's then updated all those 3 account contact relationship records that are associated to Acme, and then we can use that in Pardot. So how do we do that? What you need to do is, if you navigate to admin and custom objects in Pardot, then you have the option here to add a new custom object. Kind of, again, here's one I've done earlier. I've mapped the account contact relationship custom object into Pardot. And if I just click into this, and configure the fields, we can see that Pardot has pulled in as well this important subscription end date field. Now, if I go back to create a dynamic list in Pardot, so segmentation and lists, subscription end date equals less than 30 days. I'm going to tick my dynamic list option, and then I'm going to set my rules. And under here, what you'll see is once you've mapped a custom object, you're going to get the attribute prospect custom object as an option. And then we're going to say that we will match prospects related with properties to the account contact relationship by contact. And then here's where we select our field. So we're going to say subscription date, days in future, less than or equal to 30. And then we're going to run our rules. And what this would do then, obviously it shows 0 because I've just run it. It needs to go through my database and evaluate it. But what this will pull in is any product prospect who in Salesforce, they're related to an account via either a direct lookup or an account contact relation indirect relationship, and that account has less than 30 days remaining on its subscription. So we can then target those prospects with email comms to notify them your subscription end date is coming up, you need to renew. So that's one option that you can do. And I did pick out another potentially interesting talk which might try to solve one of the other problems that I was talking about earlier, which is even though we can segment our audience and decide who we need to send comms to, what we can't do is actually personalize those email messages to say that this relates to this specific account or this specific product in this account. They really can't be personalized emails. So I noticed that I think it was Adam Estelle, and this session clashes with this one, or it's just finished, I think. But he had a session where he was looking at how do you send a Pardot email with multiple line items. So I've not seen the session because it clashes, but I'm guessing it's going to be something like where you would have one email and pulling in information from all the related records into that email. So that might be a solution to some of the problems here, but it will have its limitations certainly, and it won't, I wouldn't imagine, encompass all the different scenarios that you might want to send emails to account contact relationship records. So that leads on to the next point, which is that another workaround is that Pardot might be the right tool for you, either after you've initially onboarded or signed a client, or it might not be the right tool for you across the whole journey. So I guess just a brief mention here that Marketing Cloud does have capabilities to build a custom data model with its data extension functionality. So you're not tied to the same prospect data model that we looked at in Pardot. Now, obviously, Marketing Cloud is a higher price solution, but really you do have more control over your data structure and your email personalization logic. And yeah, Salesforce themselves do recommend using Pardot and Marketing Cloud together in some scenarios where you might need that higher level of personalization after that initial sale to a client. So that's how they described it in this slide. And going back to that delivery case study that I mentioned earlier, here's the model that we eventually settled on. So it's using Pardot to attract and nurture prospects in the early part of the decision makers' interactions with us. And then after the opportunity is close won, and when we need to handle that complexity of all the different communications around the life cycles of multiple different accounts that are related to a decision maker, then we're using Marketing Cloud with data extensions that leverage that account contact relationship object. So that means that the decision maker is simultaneously able to receive comms about all the restaurants which might be in the process of joining us, succeeding on the platform, or requiring improvement. So they really do work well together. So I've got some more resources linked here, which would definitely be useful to anybody either looking to implement contacts to multiple accounts or try and fine tune how it works together with Pardot. But yeah, that's the end of the session, but I do have a couple of Q&As to answer here. So let's have a look. The first Q&A is, how does this affect campaign attribution in Pardot? One example, if you are associating all contacts in an account as opportunity roles, will this get messy across multiple accounts if the contact is assigned to multiple accounts? So this is related to opportunity roles. So in regards to opportunity roles and marketing attribution, if I recall, the best practice here is not to automatically associate every single contact in an account as opportunity roles. I believe there's an app exchange package from Secante that does some of the logic behind that. But I don't believe the best approach is to automatically associate all the contacts in an account as opportunity roles. But thinking about it anyway, if we're using contacts to multiple accounts, you're not directly related to the account anyway. So even if you did have logic to set that up, it wouldn't automatically pull in all those contacts who are only related through the account contact relationship record. And the final Q&A is, how does this setup relate to a record having 2 different email addresses in Pardot for prospecting? That scenario would be if you would actually need 2 different prospects in that case. So if somebody has 2 different email addresses, they would have 2 different prospects in Pardot. They could both be associated to a primary account, and they could both have account contact relationship links to other different accounts. So I think it would be compatible with that approach, yeah. Great. I think that's all the Q&As. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining the session. There's a couple of social media links there if you want to connect. Feel free to ask any more questions offline about any of the content that we discussed, but hope you all enjoyed the session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Asking about the links from the end of the presentation. Presentations will be added to the SpotMe website over the weekend, so those will be available to you on Monday. So thank you again, Matt. That's going to conclude our session today. Thank you so much for joining us. And a big shout out to our sponsors. This event certainly wouldn't be possible without them, so make sure to check out their booths before the event ends. I wish you a great rest of the day at Pardreamin', and see you guys at the closing keynote today in about 45 minutes at 2:15 p.m. Have a great one.